Oh, that's so fancy.
Okay, we're going to watch the numbers coming in. Yes, they are coming in.
I can't see that.
No? I never know with Zoom webinar what people are seeing and what.
No,
Oh, we can see at the bottom, Beth, under participants.
no,
Oh, okay.
no, we cannot. Interesting. If you're the one who's the host, you're limited on what you see.
Yes. So I'll give it a couple more minutes just to, and then we'll start our introduction. Welcome everybody who's coming in. Okay. Well, I think we will get started. Welcome everybody. Hello and welcome to our webinar this evening. My name is Elizabeth Chapman and I'm one of the committee members for Canadians for Homeopathy. A special welcome to all of our subscribers. Thank you for your support and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. Canadians for Homeopathy is a nonprofit volunteer-run organization with the mission to educate Canadians about the benefits of homeopathy and use of homeopathy, and to ensure that Canadians are able to choose homeopathy for their health care. And we provide webinars that are free to watch live on a variety of topics, and you can visit our website and look at the webinar headings to see past webinars, and it includes three of the previous webinars that are some of our most popular ones that are available to watch, that everyone can watch for free. Otherwise, if you would like to become a subscriber, then you have access to all of our past webinars and so on. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook. And if you do visit our website, you will find a lot of great information about homeopathy. And we're working on renewing our practitioner directory. You can sign up on our website to receive our newsletter and to stay informed about our webinars and also regarding issues related to homeopathy in Canada. And if you can afford to become a subscriber, we would love to have you. It's a very reasonable rate of $6 a month or $60 per year for, or a little more if you can afford, if you're a professional. We appreciate your support so we can continue to update our website and host webinars and take care of all the expenses that come along with sending out newsletters and running an organization such as ours. And also, if you would like to share your story with us, we are collecting testimonials and we would love to hear about your experience with homeopathy. If you want to put up the next slide, this is just our disclaimer. The information is presented is not intended to diagnose or treat disease, but is for educational purposes only. Tonight, of course, we are not having a specific topic around treatment, so it's not so necessary. If you want to go to the next slide, thank you, Beth. And you'll see there's our mission, our vision, bringing the health benefits of homeopathy to all Canadians, and our values: personalized, ethical, quality care supported by competent professionals. So we appreciate that many conditions can be treated at home with a home kit. However, for more serious chronic illness, we encourage people to consult a professional homeopath. And that is somewhat related to our topic tonight. So tonight, our webinar is Becoming a Professional Homeopath, all about the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine. And I'm welcoming two presenters tonight. Beth Landau-Halpern was trained in classical homeopathy at Purton House School of Homeopathy in the UK. She's been in practice for 20 years. Beth has been a clinician for a double-blind placebo study on the efficacy of homeopathy in addressing ADHD through the University of Toronto. She taught on the faculty of the University of Toronto Health Studies program. And currently she's the head of homeopathy at Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine and a clinical supervisor. And joining Beth is Harula Batista, Harula is the Dean and Vice President of Academics and Student Affairs at the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine. Harula received her honors Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the University of Toronto and her diploma of homeopathic medicine and health sciences from the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine. She graduated on the Dean's List in both homeopathy and medical sciences. Harula has an academic and professional background in IT and other holistic healthcare modalities. Her passion for homeopathy continues to grow, and she has a private practice in Toronto. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine. It is a leading institution in classical homeopathy, offering exceptional education since 2001. As the only nonprofit homeopathic school in North America, we pride ourselves on our robust curriculum and unapologetically high academic and clinical standards. Our programs are designed to meet the needs of students from diverse backgrounds with flexibility and a focus on individualized learning. With a world-class faculty and a comprehensive clinical internship, OCHM prepares students to excel as homeopaths in Canada and beyond. Our commitment to excellence and flexibility makes us a top choice for those seeking a career in homeopathy. So welcome, Harula and Beth. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Hey. So, Harula, you want to start talking about the history of OCHM?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to mention to all of the participants that this conversation is just that. It's a conversation. Please feel free to ask questions at any time, interject. Beth and I have a really friendly style, so we just talk to each other, over each other, and at each other all the time. So let's get going. Right, the history of OCHM. We've been around since 2001, and we are the only not-for-profit homeopathic institution in North America. The reason that's so important is because we are able to put as much as possible into student learning and engagement. Our sort of system of teaching and learning is such that our students will always come first. So when there are additional funds available in the system in our school, we always funnel it to the students. And what that means is that we will talk about this later on, but recently we started something called an enhanced curriculum. And we'll talk about that later, but it's basically additional classes for our students above and beyond our already robust curriculum that gets them to learn more complicated concepts, more leading edge, research-based homeopathic ideas and concepts that they would normally have to pay a lot of money for. And these extra classes, which tend to be once or twice a month, and sometimes even more than that, come to our students for free. So these sort of additional classes is how we give back to our community. Also, being a not-for-profit means that we have a certain level of responsibility to our students, and we take that really quite seriously at the school. And once we commit to our students, we commit to them for the entirety of the program and help them get through. And we sort of are able to work with them very closely to achieve their goals, whatever their goals might be in homeopathic education. So we are for the advancement of homeopathic education, of course. We have various programs at the college. It's one program, but based on people's educational backgrounds, really sort of determines how long the program is for them. So for example, if a medical professional like a physician or a nurse comes into the program, they would be exempt from the health and medical science courses, which makes sense because they already have those under their belt. In which case, the accelerated diploma program for health professionals would be one that is suitable for them. Otherwise, the blended intensive diploma program is a 3-year-long program. And that is for individuals who require teaching in both the medical sciences, homeopathy, and clinical internship. The postgraduate program is for those individuals who come from different schools who want more of an education than what they've already received. It's also for those individuals who want to bolster their education in the field of homeopathy. The certificate course is an introductory course. It's a very robust course, actually. It used to be a course that we taught in the first year of study, and we've taken it out from our program as an independent study course. Of course, there are audio and visual components to all of these lessons. But the reason we did that is because we keep adding to our curriculum. And this being an introductory course, we figured, well, let's try to streamline the program. So people have to take the foundations course, also known as the certificate course, before they begin the diploma program. And that foundations course or certificate course is in fact what most schools teach in a year's time. It's really that robust. Um, Parents, the lay people of our communities and countries take this course as a one-off if they don't want to pursue a career in homeopathic medicine, which is wonderful. So they do get a lot of information in this course. And of course, if they wish to continue into the diploma program, they get full credit both financially as well as in terms of credits put toward the diploma program. And of course, clinical internship is also a standalone element of our program. And the reason that's important to note is because many students who've graduated from other institutions may choose to have more clinical internship practice for various reasons. Or if they've come from a school that doesn't have a robust clinical practice, then they can come to ours and complete or fulfill their desire for greater clinical practice. Beth, do you have anything to say about those elements?
No, the only thing I want to say is that the clinical internship program it's something that we really encourage our students to start early on when if they're doing the blended intensive diploma program, so that students are becoming comfortable with real life clinical situations from the very beginning of their studies, obviously after they finish the foundations course. But we have found that the students who start the blended program doing their clinical internship at the same time as the academic program, and as we proceed, this will all become a little bit clearer to you, are the ones who really find it the easiest to take the learning they're doing in the classroom and apply it into the clinical setting. And they are the ones who will most quickly progress in their clinical skills as a result.
And we'll talk about clinic in greater detail later on. But the clinical internship can be really intense for our students. And it's designed that way because in real life clinic, we don't get patients who are simple. Every case is complicated. And because every case is complicated, and these are real life cases, and it's not, we'll talk about this more, it's not just the supervisors who are taking the case, it is the students under supervision, and we'll discuss what that means. They put a lot of work into it. They have to put a lot of work into it because it's really the only way to come to a treatment plan for a patient that is effective. And of course, long-term case management is part of the clinical internship. So this is all really quite challenging for the students. But it's designed that way because we don't want our students to be left high and dry with easy cases initially and then easy. I mean, what is easy? With easy cases initially and then, go out into the real world and not know what to do following graduation. So our students are certainly very competent, confident, and knowledgeable upon graduation, and that's what we take pride in. This is the heart and soul of what we do here.
Yes, I'd say our mantra is that we really are committed to preparing students to leave homeopathy school ready to embark on in practice. And I think if you look around, certainly when I went to school, I think when Harula went to OCHM in its earlier iteration, the vast majority of people who would go through the program were not really ready to practice when they finished. And although, yes, we do have some students who, for one reason or another, choose not to practice after completing the program, it's not because they're not ready to practice. It's not because they aren't fully prepared for the rigors of practice.
And so our OCHM locations, I mean, we can thank COVID for this, but um, all of our programming is online. It's live, but it's online. We have an office in Toronto, but everything in that we teach, our classes as well as our clinic, is conducted live and online through Zoom.
I want to add to that we have students from all over the world. And this is a really, again, thank you, COVID, for this. Because initially we really it would be very hard for students to, from around the globe to travel to Toronto to take classes. But now we have students, we have in this present class, we have somebody in Abu Dhabi, we have someone in India, we have somebody in the Philippines, we have people on the West Coast, we have people in the Southern United States, we have people all over Canada. So we have people from all around the world taking the course. And I think that both Harula and I were really concerned initially when we went online that the really strong feeling of community that we created in the classroom would be lost. And actually, that's not the case at all. Our students, we have, when we sat both in the classroom and in clinic, the students spend a lot of time hanging out together and chatting together. And yes, they're chatting over a virtual, over Zoom, but they know each other, they're friends with each other, they create support groups with each other, they work on cases and on all sorts of assignments together. So in spite of being online, there is a very strong sense of community among our students. And that makes me really happy, actually.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's not just the students who are all over, our patients are all over.
And our teachers.
Our teachers and our supervisors are all over the world as well, which sort of uh, expands our frame of reference when it comes to who can teach and what they can teach. So we have teachers, incredible teachers from around the world who are specialists in a specific area, and these are the teachers we like to work with so that they can share their expertise. High standards. Beth, why don't you take this?
Oh, you go ahead.
So over the years, we've developed quite a reputation as being a leader in the classical homeopathic education community. We are teaching on the cutting edge of homeopathy, and we can go into that a little bit later, but basically we joke and say we teach classical homeopathy and beyond. And what that means is that we do not teach classical Hahnemannian homeopathy only, although there is a time and a place for classical Hahnemannian homeopathy. Homeopathy did not die with the death of Hahnemann. Homeopathy has continued very vibrantly over the years with many contributors to this incredible field that is our passion. And so as a result, we have taken the teachings of many modern masters and integrated them into our curriculum. So we do teach the Sankran method. We do teach periodic table of elements, courtesy of Jan Schulten. We do teach cure plants. We teach Sankran plants. We teach detox protocols based on
Tom Jensen.
what's his name?
Tom Jensen.
Ton Jensen. And we do all that from a classical perspective. Now, the detox protocols are not so classical in their entirety, but we do this for a very specific reason, and it's because of the patients that we see in clinic. And homeopaths no longer see patients who have a little sniffly, runny nose. We see patients with very severe pathologies. And oftentimes, classical homeopathy, in and of itself, is not helpful to some patients. So we need to have innovative ways of treating patients who are in desperate need of help because they've been to every other healthcare provider that they can and have not seen results in their particular pathology. So in our school, we do teach various methods of treatment because the public is asking for it. as a result of the pathologies that are presented in clinic. So we teach classical homeopathy and more. Um, and a lot of what we teach is certainly comparable to some of the best schools around the world. And in fact, much of what we teach, most schools don't even. They don't touch it because they don't have the means to do so. But we do. And this is part of being a not-for-profit organization, is that we create the means for our students to learn at the highest possible level. Beth?
Okay, so as Arula said, not all schools are the same. It's hard to find a homeopathy school that suits you. And I think the most important thing to look for from a clinical perspective, most people who come to homeopathy school want to graduate and practice homeopathy. They want to help people. Most people come to homeopathy from a place of curiosity about other modalities, about having had a interesting experience with homeopathy themselves, and they want to take that experience, that curiosity, and create a profession, a career out of it. And the really, really important question to always ask is, what is the clinical experience of students at the school, and how many of them are practicing at once they leave the school? So we prepare our students to exceed the requirements that are required. Certainly CHO, which is the College of Homeopaths of Ontario, which is our regulatory college in Ontario, we find that the standards for education there are really just barely touch what we feel our students need to learn. And similarly, the number of hours they need to put into clinic, the requirements are much, much lower than what we expect for our students. And we are not going to be shy and tell you that this is not a difficult program to get through. We're not going to be shy and tell you that you're not going to be working very hard. But unless you are committed to doing that hard work and really do want to learn the width and the breadth of what homeopathy can do, you will never have a professional practice. And we are really, truly determined, you'll hear us say that over and over again, that our students are fully prepared to practice upon graduation from our school. So our curriculum, and I want to be clear that we're talking here about our academic curriculum. So I will be talking particularly about clinic in a minute. So there's an academic curriculum, and there's also the clinical requirements. And those are not the same. Right here, we're talking about the curriculum. So we have two parts of the curriculum. One is an independent learning stream, which we'll discuss in a minute, and the other is an in-class curriculum. And again, we broke the curriculum down like this, maybe about 5 years ago. We hived off large portions of what was happening in the classroom into independent learning modules, because we really wanted to open up space to bring in new ideas, current thinking in homeopathy, to really prepare our students for success. So the curriculum is robust, it's in depth, it's relevant, very well organized. One of the hardest things about teaching homeopathy is that it is not linear learning. It's not like you learn A and then B builds on A and then C builds on A, B. It doesn't work like that. We think of it more like a spiral. And so you can jump onto that spiral in terms of the independent learning curriculum at pretty much any point in time and get started doing the independent learning work. And then, and we'll talk about this, I believe, in another slide, you jump into the in-class curriculum at different points. The in-class curriculum begins with what we're calling a group of classes called Homeopathic Essentials. It's the ideas and concepts that you need to know to build on And then the other building blocks can just sort of come almost willy-nilly in any order. And eventually, and you'll have to trust me on this, it all falls into place and it all makes sense. But it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of material. It's a lot to learn. And it isn't always so easy to figure out how it all fits together. But I guarantee you there comes a point when you go, ah, I got it, and it all clicks. So moving on, Harula, why don't you talk about our faculty?
Yeah, this is a great segue to talk about faculty because we work with some of the best in the industry. So all of our medical science courses, actually, I should mention that all of our classes are 8 hours long. So there's none of this like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 hour classes. Our classes are 8 hours long each. So if we're talking about Sankaran plants, for example, as a topic of discussion. First of all, it's not one day. Sankaran plants is not one day. It's 2 days. That means 16 hours just on plants, Sankaran method. And we've taken the approach of like, we can't teach all 9,000 remedies plus that are in our Materia Medica right now. But we've taking different approaches with different classes. So for example, in the Sankaran method classes, we teach through the kingdoms approach. So plants, we've narrowed it down from kingdom to plants. Then we narrow it, we help students understand how to narrow down the selection of a remedy through sensation, say. So we go from kingdom to plants to sensation, which means family, to miasmatic predisposition, which a lot of schools, by the way, don't teach. We teach miasm extremely heavily in our program, practically in every single class as it relates to the topic at hand. So we move from kingdom to plants to family to miasm, and then we find not a few remedies, but a select group of remedies that represent that which might be suitable for the patient that we're seeing. We bring in a lot of case studies into our teaching. Oftentimes there are live case takings during classes, so it's not solely reserved for clinic. We ask our students to be extremely engaged, and this leads us back to faculty because we work with the best of the best in the industry. So people who teach for us are scholars, they are practitioners themselves, they are researchers and consultants. All of our medical science courses are taught by PhDs and doctors. We don't, have like our students teaching anatomy of physiology, for example, or pathology or physical exam or differential diagnosis. All of these important classes are taught by PhDs and medical doctors. And that's very important to understand and to appreciate because we've searched long and hard for the people that we work with. We have excellent relationships with them. They're extraordinary teachers. And our students are able to engage with the faculty in real time, one-on-one, have all of their questions answered, and develop relationships that are quite fruitful in the long run because we're not in this alone. The homeopathic community needs to be more of a cohesive community, and this is how we try to make that happen. Beth?
Okay, so quality training means creating quality homeopaths, and as we've said so many times today, that really is our mission. So I think this is I want to talk a little bit about clinic here because this slide it does talk about clinic a little bit, but I am going to talk about the structure of clinic a little bit more in a moment. One of the things that is very unique about our clinical environment is that students take cases, excuse me. Many schools, students observe professionals, observe their teachers taking cases. And while this has some limited value, there is nothing like it. You don't learn to ride a bicycle by watching somebody else ride a bike. You learn to ride a bicycle by hopping on and doing it yourself. we're very committed. And one of the things we talk about a lot is how do we fulfill both the needs of our students and the needs of our patients? We really want the clinical setting to be an excellent clinic in which patients are getting absolutely first-rate care, but at the same time, we want the students to be having the opportunity to be learning how to actually do what they're doing without sacrificing the quality of the patient experience. So all of the patients who come into our clinic, and our clinic is extremely busy. I just finished the schedule for this week, and we have something like 35 patients coming in. And every single case gets assigned a team to it. And the team consists of a primary case taker, who's one of our more senior students, a secondary case taker, who is probably a second year student, and a supervisor. So the supervisors are those professionals, those teachers who do the clinical teaching. They have at minimum, 15 years of clinical experience before we'll even consider allowing them to be a supervisor. And that team works with the patient for the initial case, for a discussion that follows a week later, and for every follow-up that comes on after that until one of the students graduates. So when the primary case taker graduates, the secondary case taker, who's already fully familiar with the case, moves into the primary case taker's seat, and a student who has been observing the case becomes the new secondary. So there's almost this seamless movement of students going through the patient's case history, with the supervisor being the constant and constant presence, the supervisor who knows the patient for years and years at a time often. And what this does is it creates a facsimile, really, of long-term case management. So if you look at the spreadsheets of our students' clinic experience, and they have to keep spreadsheets of their cases, you'll see that students will see the same patient 7, 8, 9, 10 times or more, and really get familiar with how you follow a case through time. Too much of homeopathic education is focused on the first case. What happens when you first see the patient when they come in? Yes, it's new, it's exciting. It's exciting to take a first case, but you know what? That's only the start of the work of working with people. And what we are trying to do in our clinic is offer patients quality care over time, and offer our students the opportunity to follow patients over time and understand how you actually do this in the real world.
I also want to mention that you mentioned it in a roundabout way, Beth, but our clinic is scaffolded. So everyone coming into clinic, all the students coming in for the very first time, do begin as observers until they fulfill the clinical requirements for the observation phase of the program. Um, and observation doesn't mean you sit in a case and you observe the case. That doesn't fly for us. You're not just a pretty face in clinic. You have to do the work. You have to have a case write up. Your analysis has to be on point. And of course, the requirements for each student as they progress from observer to secondary case taker to primary case taker, those requirements increase through that journey, and the expectation and the rubric of expectations increase as well. So initially, our observers are in fact observing. They're observing their peers, and they're observing the supervisors, but they're doing the work, and they have to do the work. And once they move into secondary case taking, they're on the hot seat now because they're prepared. They may not be fully prepared, and that's okay. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're fully prepared to take cases, and that's okay. But that's where the supervision comes into play. If there is a situation where the student doesn't know what direction to take the case in, the supervisor will step it up. And the reason this is so important is because Not only at the College of Homeopaths of Ontario, it is a regulatory guideline that each case must be fully supervised. And there could be some loose interpretation of what that means, but we take it to mean that the student who's taking the case is supervised at the moment. It doesn't mean that the student is taking a case willy-nilly at Starbucks or in an office or in somebody's home on their own without clinical supervision and then talking to a supervisor about it afterwards. That leaves a lot of room for inconsistency, bias. Um, it leaves room for not being able to describe what's happened in the case. It leaves room for an incomplete case to be taken. Whereas in the clinic setup that we present, there is no room for error. So when the supervisor is there, the patients are being taken care of properly, not to mention that students aren't allowed to be taking cases on their own without clinical supervision. Because if they're acting like homeopaths and they're not licensed, that's illegal. So we cover all these bases because not only is it a CHO requirement, but it's also the best way to teach students how to perform optimally and ethically.
So the supervisors, when they start, I have a long conversation with them about the way that they're to work with the students. And what we'll find will happen is a student, even a skilled student, will start taking a case and then they'll gloss over something. A patient says something, it's like very important, and you see the experienced eye sees that this is really where the attention needs to be. And the supervisor will gently but kindly sweep in and say, let's stick exactly where we are for a little bit longer. Please explore this area a little bit further and encourage the student to stay where they are, to be very cognizant of the process and what they're doing and guide them. Occasionally, supervisors will step in and take over if things really go pear-shaped, but that doesn't happen very often. Our students, by the time they get to the point of actually taking cases, have first of all, been in clinic for a while, but secondly, there are courses offered on how you take cases. And there's a lot of practice that they do between each other so that they're really ready when they come into the clinical setting as a primary case taker to take cases. So, the professional program, as I mentioned earlier, is comprised of the independent learning curriculum, the live learning, the enriched curriculum, and the clinical internship. This is not to mention the medical sciences, which I'm going to let Harula talk to you about.
Yeah, so the medical sciences, I mean, if there's any one specific criticism that OCHM has been dealt over the years is that we offer or we expect our students to take all of these medical sciences. We're not apologizing for this. Every single patient that comes into clinic has a pathology where they are seeing a medical team for. Unless our students understand that pathology, they will not be able to help the patient. It is for that reason only that we are so insistent on this medical science teaching. Um, and, you know, even with physical exam, like, well, how can you teach physical exam online? We do. We don't expect our students to be palpating livers, for example, and know what the difference is between a liver that is inflamed versus one that's not. That's not the point. The point is that we do receive reports from physicians. We receive reports from medical teams, and we need to be able to read them and understand what's happening with the patient and follow them with our treatment protocol. That's the reason all of these medical sciences are so important. And we put a great emphasis on them. And just to reiterate, all of our medical sciences are taught by medical doctors and PhDs who are specialists in their fields.
And why don't you go with this one as well, Harula?
So the homeopathic curriculum, right? We just keep growing it. And our students have a lot on their plates, and we just say, That's nice. Let's keep adding more. And that's what we do. Every year we just keep adding more and more. And why is that so important is because homeopathy is continuing to evolve. It's because we want to give our students as much as we possibly can with the resources that we have. Um, and it's because, we want to offer our patients and their patients in the future the best of care. So we just keep adding to the curriculum and we don't care if our students suffer. It's not so.
Really, you're horrible. We do care if our students suffer.
We
What
do.
is not they're included in here now is the homeopathic essentials, because this slide we didn't update this slide on that. So the foundations course, as we explained to you previously, is the certificate course by another name, but it's the prerequisite independent learning program. Homeopathy 201, 301, 401 are independent learning course collections of classes that you do on your own. 201, we suggest you do in your first year, 301 in your second year, 401 in your third year. And they're not that demanding. There's not going to, it's not hours and hours and hours. Harul, about how many classes are in each of those?
Well, the classes, as we mentioned, are 8 hours long. So in homeopathy 201, there are 6 classes, 301, 4, and 401, 4 classes as well.
Okay, so that's not that bad. And then we've divided the in-class curriculum into 4 components. And one, I'm sorry, that one is missing from this slide. The first is the homeopathic essentials. And that way we can offer homeopathic essentials at the beginning of every year so that students, or this year we started homeopathic essentials
In
at the
September.
beginning of every year, basically, so that students can come in and not have to wait for the 3-year cycle to go through before they can start the program. And then homeopathy, Kent, homeopathy, hearing, and homeopathy, CFSH, are just collections of classes that really can be taken almost in any order once you've taken the homeopathic essentials. We also offer practice management. We teach you a lot about how to run your practice when you finish, because we really, really want you to be successful. Psychology and communication skills, and of course, regulation and jurisprudence, which is the regulatory college requirements. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the clinical internship right here. Our clinic is every Wednesday, and students are strongly encouraged to start their clinical internship as soon as they possibly can. And students who start can dabble in clinic. They can just dabble a little bit and taste it and see what's going on, or they can fully immerse themselves in clinic from the very, very beginning. We understand that some students can't do that. For some students, it's very difficult to get Wednesdays off of work or whatever is going on in their life. So, but we will make it really clear to you that at some point in the program, once you have finished your academic work, you will need to figure out a way of being present for clinic for every Wednesday. You can do most of your observational requirements using recorded cases that we will provide, but that is not optimal. So while you can probably do the first 2 years of the program without being available on Wednesdays, by your 3rd year, you really do need to find a way of being available. We do have some students who do a clinical externship. Again, we don't encourage it, but particularly for students in other countries, it has, and in different time zones, it has proven to be necessary. So
Do have to mention that even with our clinical externship, we have to approve the supervisor, and the supervisor must be present during each case taking.
excellent, good. So there is a number of our clinical requirements include both numbers of completed cases and clinical hours. So the CHO has a requirement for clinical hours and our requirement for clinical hours is, I think, about 3 times more than what the CHO requires. But we also require a certain number of completed cases. A completed case is seeing the initial case and then at least 2 or 3 follow-ups of that case, depending on whether you're an observer, a secondary, or a primary, so that you've gotten at least some experience with long-term case management. But as I say, most of our students are seeing the patients who are sticking around 8, 9, 10 plus times. So those are, again, a diminution of what will actually happen. So there's observation, which we encourage you to start as early as possible, secondary case taking, primary case taking. There's always a discussion after any new case. So we have, say, on Wednesday, 3 new patients coming, new case, new team. There usually will be a large number of observers, because we encourage observer students to start with new patients and to then follow those patients over time, so that they are even at the observational level, seeing the long-term case management. So say we have, last week, for instance, we had 6 new cases, which was a big load of new cases. This week, the students have had a week to go home and work on the cases, to submit a written report. They're given a very clear structure of what that report should look like. The report is a guide through the way homeopaths think. So it helps the students, particularly the newer students, understand the process of homeopathic thinking and creating a case analysis. They have a week to work on that. They don't have a week to work on that. The cases are on Wednesday. They have to have them at my desk by Monday morning. On Monday and Tuesday, I furiously work at commenting on all of these case write-ups and sending them back, so that at the discussion that happens on Wednesday, the students are really ready to sound smart, to sound like they know what they're doing, to be prepared to know how to present their case if they're called on. And of course, always the primary case taker and secondary case taker will be called on. But the discussion that happens with the supervisor who is present, who will have also worked on the case, will have also done a case analysis. And then it's really a team discussion. And of course, observers who are interested are encouraged to weigh in, to offer their ideas and their thoughts. So discussion sessions are a wonderful, wonderful learning opportunity. And even our most experienced students, if they have a free time, a free slot in their clinic day, they will go to any discussion that's happening, because that's where they learn the most from the supervisors. Now, I do want to let me finish, and then I'll go back to talking about the supervisors in a moment. We talked about the consistent team and about supervision. We talked the team approach, meaning we work on these cases together. And then we also do clinic teaching. So there's 2 kinds of clinical teaching that occurs. One is part of the in-class curriculum, where, for instance, I just last weekend taught a class on how do you take a child's case? What is the approach to taking a child's case? If it's a baby, if it's a school-age child, if it's a teenager, what are the things we're looking for? What is the language? What are the pitfalls? What are the approaches? How do you get information from a child of that age? So there's in-class teaching. There's also the teaching and the discussion. And we also do clinic classes that are at the beginning of the day. About once a month, we will have the entire clinical community. It's a really fun way to start the day, because pretty much the whole school is there together. And we will have a class on some topic that has come up in clinic that we need to address, and will be discussed as a group. So this on Wednesday, Harula actually is going to be teaching a class on what we do when one of our patients starts using suicidal talk, talking about suicide, thinking about suicide. What are our responsibilities? What are our duties? What is the best approach? What does the law call for? And how do we get more help if we need it? So this is something that is not really covered. The registration, the regulatory college does not have good guidelines on this, and we've had enough situations in clinic or other homeopaths calling us for advice that we thought, okay, this is a really good idea for a short pre-clinic class. So that's simply an example of the kind of thing we'll do once a month, and they vary dramatically what we choose to do in those sessions. And finally, I want to say that one of the really key features of our clinic is that patients who have come 7, 8, 9, 10 times and worked with you as a primary case taker are committed to you. They really, really like you. You are their practitioner. And although some of them have some kind of rapport with the supervisor, it's with the primary case taker that they really have a rapport. So when you finish in clinic and you're leaving and opening your own practice, you are encouraged to invite any patients you want who you have worked with over time to join you in your practice. And the beauty of this is that you will start your practice with a handful of patients who you're already very comfortable with the case, they're already comfortable with you, and they will be your best advertisement for new patients moving forward. So that's something that we're really happy to do. We're happy to do it because our clinic is insanely busy, and we're really happy to offload some patients as students move through the program and make room in the clinic for new patients. So this works for the clinic and it works for the students, and I think it works really well for the patients as well. Oh, I know the other thing that I wanted to say before I move on is that we have 6 clinical supervisors working in clinic. We have 6 Zoom rooms open during our clinic. So there are often 4, 5, 6 cases taking place at the same time. So it is a bit of a madhouse on Wednesdays. But every one of our supervisors, while very grounded Hahnemannian approaches, has a different approach to case taking and to case analysis. And we think it's really important for our students to be exposed to a wide range of approaches so that they can perhaps find a certain approach that resonates with them particularly, but also different cases call for different approaches. And if you only know one approach, you only know one way of addressing a patient, you only know one way of analyzing the information you cull from your case taking, you will run yourself into trouble. And for this reason, we encourage our students to become familiar with a wide range of different approaches, and it really it puts many, many tools into their toolbox. Harula, classes.
Thank you. Our classes run on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 10 to 6. Um, Usually every other weekend, sometimes more often, depending on how the holiday schedules fall. Our classes do run from September through July, so our students only get the month of August off. Clinic happens every Wednesday, all year long.
Except for
And
August this year.
except for August this year, yeah. It's a little slower in August, although somebody will volunteer, and usually that's me, to take on the patients that come through in August who need some help. And it's okay. They're not abandoned. No one is abandoned at OCHM. And really there are 2 major start points during the school year for live classes, and that is September and January. But we have a rolling enrollment, so people can get started anytime. They get started with the foundations course anytime, and then they get into class whenever that next class date begins. But up until, so say for example, someone started the foundations course and finished today. What would they be doing from now to September, you ask? Well, they are certainly encouraged to start on their independent study work. The faster they get through that, the less stress they'll have and the less of a workload they'll have going through the program. They can also start observing in clinic. So there is never, ever a dull moment for an OCHM student, ever. Let's move forward.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the enriched curriculum. So the enriched curriculum is a new addition to our program, what, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe? Did we start it?
Yep.
So what we were noticing is that a lot of students finish homeopathy school and they think, oh, shoot, I have to do a postgraduate program and study with some famous homeopath to really learn how to do homeopathy and really learn how to understand new concepts and ideas that are coming up in the, sort of the larger homeopathic community, and to really know how to deal with very complicated and complex cases. And we thought, no, that's not right. We don't want our students to have to finish and then do a postgraduate program. So we've created what we call the enriched curriculum, which is in essence a postgraduate program that is offered. It's always changing. It's constantly changing, and students are being exposed from the very beginning to ideas that may be well beyond them at the time, but they're constantly being exposed to this new ideas, new thinking, new approaches. These are classes that we are able to offer because we open the classes to professional homeopaths, well, around the world, really, and we get homeopaths from around the world who pay not a large fee, a really very reasonably small fee for studying with some of the greatest thinkers in, contemporary homeopathic thinking. And the students are fascinated by the experience of watching professional homeopaths learn, ask questions, push the envelope a little bit. And we've created for students a library of the enriched curriculum classes. So even if they sit and listen to Divya Chabra talk about her method and they don't understand a word of it, they can go back in their third year when they're more prepared to understand what she's talking about, and take that class out of the library and expose themselves to it again. So our enriched curriculum constantly changes. It's a lot of guest lecturers. This year we had Jonathan Hardy, who is a wonderful, wonderful teacher, is coming in June to teach us about mollusks as part of the enriched curriculum. We had Michal Yakir for 4 days in October, teaching her plant method. We've had Angelica Lemke this year talking about pandas and pans. We have a class coming up next week on homeopathy for assisted reproduction. It's a constantly changing rota of really, really interesting topics, and we're really, really proud of this program because it really does expose our students to a very wide breadth of thinking and of skills that they wouldn't get in virtually any other homeopathy school without doing a postgraduate program.
So Beth, this actually we have a question in the Q&A, and I think that your discussion plays really nicely into this question. So it says, as someone is asking, it sounds like you teach different methods, classical, Sankaranian, at the same time, question mark, or do you start with the basic classical method in the foundations course and then expand on that?
So yes, the foundations course is strictly Hahnemannian, but then we mentioned this homeopathic essentials. So homeopathic essentials takes one step beyond that. So in homeopathic essentials, and I can get out the curriculum right here. I don't have it in front of me. I lied. We talk about, you start learning how to do repertory. You start understanding what we're talking about when we talk about kingdoms, what we're talking about when we talk about miasm, introduction to using the periodic table so that you know how to use minerals. So that's largely a Scholten method. What else is in homeopathic essentials?
I can share. Okay, so basically, even the repertory, actually, we don't start learning the repertory in homeopathic essentials.
We do it in
Repertory is taught in foundations.
foundations.
Miasms are taught in foundations. So these sort of concepts are taught in greater detail in classes later on. So in this year's essentials course, we taught more repertory, case-taking analysis, remedy relationships, case-taking discussions, plants, classical clinical case-taking, more plants with Mikalia Kier, miasms. Oh, Lipanovka taught the Divya protocol.
Right, but those were part of the
Enhanced
curriculum at the
curriculum,
same time, right?
differential diagnosis, periodic table, and the psychology of trauma.
Which was also enriched curriculum.
Enriched curriculum.
Right. So yeah, so we had peppered enriched curriculum in with the homeopathic essentials so that our students who had already done all the homeopathic essentials also had classes to take and things to engage themselves with during those. It was really 2 months or 2.5 months, I think, of the homeopathic essentials. So the answer is yes. The foundations course is it is pretty strictly Hahnemannian, and then we start stepping it up once at a time, adding ideas onto that and onto that.
And everything is classical. Everything is
Everything is
classical except
classical.
for like a few classes that are not. And that is, once again, to increase the breadth and the depth of the learning so that students can feel well-rounded in treating complex cases.
Right. So classical homeopathy basically means one remedy for that's prescribed on a totality that best suits the patient. And yes, we do that even if the range of remedies that we expect students to be able to prescribe is huge. And I think one of the things that that surprise the students most is how quickly they feel really, really comfortable with finding remedies that are really unusual and rare. Harula referred a little bit to this almost, I call it the funneling method. And up at the top of the funnel is something like 9,000 remedies. And what we do is we start bringing you down and down and down and down and down. And it's quite remarkable because at a point you're going to end up with, okay, I know that this is a spider case and I know that it's leprosy miasm. And I can look it up and there's only 3 remedies that I am going to be able to consider. And starting with 9,000, you come up with 3 that you have to study, differentially diagnose, and choose one from there. And
so I'd like to think that we teach people how to think about the remedy prescription and how to choose remedies rather than getting them to memorize every single remedy. It doesn't work.
It does not work. The only thing students are ever asked to memorize at this school are the keynote symptoms of the polycrest remedies. And for those of you who aren't familiar with those terms, polycrest remedies are the handful of big, well-known remedies that every homeopath, they're like the 36 remedies that come in a basic kit are the polycrest remedies.
Well, I mean, look, we have a lot of polycrest remedies. There are like what, 250 or something that.
And the keynotes, there's about a handful of keynotes for each one of those remedies. And that's the only thing that they ever have to memorize. All classes, all exams are open book. You do not have to memorize anything for any of your exams, except you do need to memorize the keynote symptoms for the polycrest remedies that are going to be on your materia medica exams. That's it. Okay.
Admissions. Well, we seek a talent and commitment to excellence, of course, because that's where we operate. We want to understand why it is that our prospective students want to become homeopaths. Um, and so there's an interview process there. We have to look at transcripts and letters of reference and all this stuff. So, it's not a difficult process. It's just one that we have to look into. There are some bursaries available and awards. And again, being a not-for-profit organization, that's where this comes in. So if somebody is super duper struggling, we do offer a little bit of help if that is something that they ask for.
Oh, and you may want to mention the offer we're making for people on this webinar.
Yeah, shall we do that now or later? You want to do it now?
Oh,
Okay, so for the people on this webinar and those that are members of the Canadians for Homeopathy, we are offering our certificate course, our foundations course for $500 off, which is a huge savings and certainly worthwhile. Yeah, one second, there's a question coming in. Can you say more about the Vancouver branch? It sounds like it's mostly online, or is it separate from the Ontario branch? Okay, that's a good question. I'm happy to answer that. So before COVID, we had satellite sites that would take students for clinical internship. And we work with somebody in Vancouver as well as in Manitoba. Heather's in Manitoba. We used to anyway, but because COVID brought us online, everybody can just do their clinical internship with us online.
okay, go for it.
Okay, and we're very active in terms of the homeopathic community. We offered our patients in our country really the ability to get free homeopathic care if they were having upper respiratory tract infections or symptoms that looked like upper respiratory tract infections over the course of the last 4 years.
This
That's
started as a COVID
it was
initiative.
a COVID initiative, yeah. So we like to give back. We do talks all the time on different platforms, on our own platforms. We have guest lecturers and speakers, which we talked about with the enhanced curriculum all over the world. We engage in podcasts and interviews, and we have many partners that we just love.
All right, you take this one
So
too.
one other question to repeat what I just said about the $500 discount for members. Yes, it's off of the certificate/foundations course.
Which is the prerequisite for the diploma program. Okay, so for those of you who are in Ontario, homeopathy is a regulated course, a regulated profession in Ontario. You cannot practice homeopathy. You cannot call yourself a homeopath unless you are registered with the CHO, the College of Homeopaths of Ontario, which sounds unfortunately a lot like our name, but it's not the same thing. The Ontario College of Homeopathy is strictly a training program. The College of Homeopaths of Ontario is the regulatory college. So we initially supported regulation early in the process, and we are part of the we are one of only two programs right now that are approved by the regulatory college. The regulatory college's mandate is to protect the public from homeopaths who don't know what they're doing. And being a member of the regulatory college gives our members, those who are regulated or registered, the permission to use the title of homeopath.
Also, Beth, I'd like to ask you with respect to regulation, sometimes there's confusion about regulation and accreditation. Can you talk to that?
You're much better off than I am. You do that. You do
Okay,
that. You're better
so
with that.
homeopathy is a regulated healthcare profession in Ontario. With respect to Canada, Ontario is the only province that has regulated homeopathy. That means that our graduates are able to practice in all parts of the country, but they need to be licensed in Ontario. With respect to practicing in the US, our graduates can practice in the US as well because there aren't any regulatory guidelines. Now, there are associations in the US that some schools belong to, and that's great. And you, as a graduate, can also belong to some of these associations. The reason OCHM has not formally registered as a school under any of these associations is because in the past, and we haven't looked at it recently, but in the past, we have found that the standards that the associations operate with respect to homeopathic training and education was too low for us to be associated with. So it doesn't mean that you can't be affiliated with associations. Just know that as a not-for-profit organization, we choose to spend our money on our students through enhanced curricula and all of these extra courses rather than funnel it to associations just to have our name under their umbrella of organizations that are approved. Like I said, it's because our standards are so much higher. So this is like a strategic move from OCHM. We had to weigh the pros and cons of doing that. And we came to this conclusion because our graduates can, in fact, practice in all parts of North America, licensed in Ontario, freely. Now, if you wanted the CHC designation, because we are approved under the College of Homeopaths of Ontario, that's an American designation, our graduates are able to write that test and get that designation. For every other association, we stand independently, so we don't take away the fees, and the fees can be very high for these to be part of these associations. They can be very high, and we as a not-for-profit organization have chosen to put those fees back into the student learning rather than pay associations when we know that our standards are much higher than the requirements of any association in North America.
And I'll be a little less blunt, little more blunt than you, in saying that a lot of these organizations are merely money-making entities, and they sound good. They give a seal of approval that you are accredited with, and I'm not going to use any names here, but basically anybody who pays the dues can be accredited by some of these organizations, and they're really not bona fide quality control organizations. And as a not-for-profit, it's not a wise way for us to spend our precious monies. So we choose not to do so. Some of our graduates, depending upon where they live and where they are practicing, choose to join local professional organizations, and that's a different story, because some of these local professional organizations can aid and assist practitioners in providing insurance coverage for their services. And that is how you find us.
I think there's one more slide for Liz on afterwards.
Yep. And do we have some questions to answer?
Beth, can you go to the next slide? I think there's one more.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Well, that was amazing, you guys. I just totally admire your dedication to such high standards and your enthusiasm. I want to do the course. It sounds awesome. And it's like so many people, I studied homeopathy so long ago, and it was a lot of piecemeal, I think, because there wasn't anything quite so comprehensive as what you guys have created. So well done. And I hope that there's a lot more interest, because we need more homeopaths. We know the value of homeopathy, and it sounds like people that are able to do your program will really get a great foundation and be able to, like you say, be ready and able to get out and practice and do good work. And thank you so much for your very generous ability to give our subscribers and people who are attending such a huge discount on your foundation or your certificate course. And that sounds amazing too, and a great way for anyone who wants to dip their toe in and find out if becoming a professional is where they want to go. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Liz.
And
Thank you.
I don't see any questions. I'm surprised. I had a question about becoming a patient because you must get, I mean, that must be something. And I did ask, I think in the chat, about where the patients are. It sounds like they're from everywhere.
They're from everywhere.
From all over. They're from
Yeah.
all over. Yep. You just contact the school
Mhm.
and we book if you have somebody who wants to be a patient, they contact the school. But when we'll book them in. Um,
Great.
and we, certain patients come with recommendations. They want to see the supervisor, they want to work with that student or something like that. And we do have somebody on our supervisory staff, for instance, who specializes in autism. So if we know that it's an autistic case, we'll generally assign that supervisor to the case. So our students are actually getting a lot of good experience in working with autistic children. But it depends. And we have people from different backgrounds and different approaches, and we do try to match with care. We do in the real world. If you're seeing a homeopath and it's not working for you and you think, I want to try somebody else, although we don't encourage it, we certainly permit it. And anybody who says to their case taker, their supervisor, this isn't working for me, or sometimes they'll say it to me personally or to Harula, I want to try a different team. That's absolutely fine. We're happy to move them and give them something else. And because that is we're really trying to replicate what it would be like to be practicing in the real world. And, you do have people who come to your clinic who don't resonate with you for one reason or another and want
Yes.
to try somebody else. And there's absolutely no reason that they shouldn't do it just because they're paying rock bottom prices at our clinic. And the prices are rock bottom for patients. It's
Is
really
that right, eh? Yeah.
extraordinary.
Well, I mean, and it's amazing how you guys have pivoted with the whole COVID thing and how you've created a course that is much more accessible in a way because I mean, I always thought of it as the Ontario College for Ontario people, but of course it's not anymore. It's for everyone.
Right.
And that's very exciting.
Absolutely. Are there I see there's a chat, there's 9 comments in the chat. Are any of those questions?
We've answered all the questions.
Okay, because I don't want to leave this. I'm afraid I'll mess it up. Well, then if we've answered all the questions, I want to thank you, Liz, so much for inviting us.
Well,
We always love to talk about homeopathy. We'll just go on and on and on.
I
And
know,
thank you for
that's what
all
we
of you
do.
out there.
well,
Um,
it's been great to have you guys. Thank you so much. And I'll just mention here too that on June the 10th is our next webinar, and it's another becoming a professional homeopath with the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine. So anyone who's interested in becoming a professional homeopath, I encourage you to attend our next webinar as well and meet the people behind that program. And oh, do I see another question? How much is the tuition? That's going back to your point.
That's a really great question. The tuition is 21,800. That is for all 3 years. That's Canadian and all for all 3 years. So the foundations course is typically 1,800, although you get a discount with this. You get a discount if you're a member of Canadians for Homeopathy. Um, and the 21,800, the $1,800 deposit minus the $500 is paid for the foundations course, and the rest of the tuition is broken up into 3 years. So most of our students pay on a monthly basis. Some of them pay quarterly, some of them pay yearly, whatever works best. But we're very accommodating with payment plans.
And I just want to say that is completely and totally inclusive. There is not a penny more that you will need to pay us. Yes, you may have to buy some books. You're going to want to buy some software, but there is nothing additional. There's no scaffolded course. There's no additional classes that it covers every single thing we do. There is no additional charge fees whatsoever.
And there's one more question. Does the certificate program serve as year one if you decide to continue?
So no, that's why we've taken it out completely. It's something that people do even before they enter the program. So the amount of material equates to what most schools teach in a year, but we don't even count that as part of the diploma program because there's so much more to learn. So the faster you do that, the quicker you can get into the diploma program and, you know, learn more, of course, apply the knowledge that you have already learned in the certificate/foundations course and move forward. But that certificate or foundations course is not part of it is part from a financial structure, but it's not part of the curriculum necessarily of the diploma program.
I want to make it clear though that there's no way it will take most people a year to get through the foundations course.
No, I mean, and that is usually it's something that if somebody is diligent about it, should take them about 3 to 4 months.
This is actually a great time to start the certificate program if you're interested in doing the diploma program, which is the full 3-year course, or start the foundations course, because that you could start it now and be done and ready to start classes in the spring, in September. So it's a perfect time to jump on that wagon if that's something you're considering.
Great.
All right.
Okay, well, I think we
Anybody
can.
else?
I
No,
don't
I think
see any more questions. So you guys covered it all. It's
Okay.
and yeah, thanks again for everything that you brought to us this evening to help people learn more about becoming a professional homeopath. And thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Hope you
thanks,
enjoyed
Liz.
hearing
We'll see
Thank
from
you
you
so
soon.
much.
Harula and Beth.
Thank
Okay,
you. See you
bye-bye,
soon.
everybody. Thank you. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.